Alright, we're going to take notes on the quadratic formula. This should be a review from Math 10. Okay, the quadratic formula is a way to solve a quadratic when you have a quadratic that you cannot factor. The quadratic formula is written below. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, in order to use the quadratic formula, don't forget that you need to have your quadratic in standard form, which means descending order. You should have your x squared term, and then your x term, and then your constant in order for you to be able to label A, B, and C correctly. Okay. Remember that the quadratic formula, just like factoring, will give you the points where the graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, and this is also called your x-intercepts. Okay, so those points where the graph crosses the x-axis is also called your x-intercepts. Alright, so our first example, on my notes here I have a typo. Mine says plus 66 because apparently I cannot type. Yours says plus 6, which is correct, so there we go. Alright, so you should start your problems by making sure that your equation is set equal to 0, which it is, and that it's in descending order, which it is. Okay, so then we can go ahead and start by labeling A, B, and C. A is going to be this first number in front of the squared term, so in this case it's a 1. B is going to be your second term, which is the coefficient in front of your x, so that would be negative 5. And then C should be your constant, and that should be your third term. In this case it's positive 6. Okay, so then if you use your formula, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Then you plug in your numbers, 1, negative 5, and 6, in the correct spots. So negative b would be negative 5. This negative came from the formula, and then this negative came from the number up here being negative 5. So you have to have both, okay? Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 6, all over 2a. And a is 1. Okay? Alright, so then you would just use your calculator to help you figure this out. Okay, a negative and a negative here at the beginning is really a positive 5. A negative 5 is really a positive 5. Okay, so we have 5 plus or minus the square root. Negative 5 squared, negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25. Make sure you put that in the calculator correctly using your parentheses. Okay? Then negative 4 times 1 times 6 would give you negative 24. And then on the bottom, 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? So we have 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 minus 24 is really the square root of 1 over 2. The square root of 1 is really just 1. So we have 5 plus or minus 1 all over 2. Okay? When you go to find your answers, you will actually add 1 and then divide by 2 and then subtract 1 and divide by 2. Okay? So I'm going to go back up here where I have room. Okay? 5 plus 1 would be 6 over 2 for your first answer, and 6 over 2 reduces to 3. So x could be 3. Okay, then you would take 5 minus 1. 5 minus 1 is 4. 4 over 2 would give you 2. So x could also equal 2. Alright, example number 2. Okay, make sure it's set equal to 0, and then make sure it's in descending order, and that's true for both of these cases. So a would be 10, b would be negative 15, and c would be negative 6. Okay? Alright, plug this into the formula. Okay? So x would be negative b, which again, we'd have negative from the formula, negative 15 from b being negative. So you have to have both. A negative times a negative is actually a positive 15. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so negative 15 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 10, times c, which is negative 6, all over 2a, and a is 10. Okay? Alright, so we have 15 plus or minus negative 15 squared. A negative times a negative is a positive. When you square this number, it should always be positive. Okay? Will give us positive 225. Okay? Negative 4 times positive 10 times negative 6 will give us a positive 240. 2 times 10 would give us a 20 on the bottom. Alright, so in our square root, we'd have 15 plus or minus 225 plus 240 would give us 465 over 20. Alright, so when you go ahead and put this square root of 465 in the calculator, it's not going to come out evenly like it did in the previous problem. Okay, so for right now you're going to leave them as decimal answers. Okay, so when I put in 15 plus square root of 465 in the calculator, and then I would hit equals, then hit divide by 20, and hit equals again, okay, you should get x equals positive 1.83, and that's rounded. Then in the calculator, you would put 15 minus square root of 465, and then hit equals, then hit divide by 20, hit equals again, and you will get negative 0.33, and that is also rounded. Okay, so those are your two answers. Those are your two x-intercepts. Alright, this is a U-try, so you would want to try this on your own, and then hit pause and try it on your own, and then come back and hit play and see if you get it correct. Alright, so this is already set equal to 0 and in descending order, so I can go ahead and say A is 1, B is 6, and C is negative 5. Alright, so when you go to plug it in the formula, you'd have x equals negative b, and b is 6, so you'd have negative 6 plus or minus the square root of b squared, so that's 6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 5, all over 2a. Alright, so you would end up with x equals negative 6 plus or minus in your square root here. 6 squared would give you 36. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 5 would give you a positive 20. And then 2 times 1 is 2. Okay? Alright. So we'd have negative 6 plus or minus 36 plus 20 under that square root will be 56 over 2. Okay, if you put 56 in square root of 56 in the calculator, it will not come out evenly. Okay, you will get a decimal. So for right now, you're allowed to leave your answers as decimals. So you should have x equals -6 plus square root of 56 in the calculator. Hit equals, then hit divide by 2. Okay, and you would get x equals 0.74, and that's rounded. Make sure you round correctly. And then you would put x equals -6 minus square root of 56 in the calculator. Hit enter. Then hit divide by 2. Hit equals again, and you will get -6.74. Again, make sure you round correctly. So those are your two x-intercepts. Alright, last you try, go ahead and pause the video, try it on your own, come back and hit play and check and see if your answer is correct. Okay, this is in descending order. It's set equal to 0, so you can go straight into assigning A, B, and C. A would be +3, B would be -6, and C would be -15. Alright, so when I plug these into your formula, x would be -b, so negative from the formula, and then -6 because b is -6. You have to have both. Plus or minus the square root of b squared, so -6 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 15, all over 2a, which is 3. Okay, again, a negative times a negative here at the beginning is really a +6. Okay, so you should have x equals 6 plus or minus -6 squared. A negative times a negative is a positive, so you should have a +36 in there. Okay, -4 times 3 times -15, sorry, I missed my negative up here, should give you a positive 180. And then 2 times 3 here at the bottom is 6. Alright, so you'd have 6 plus or minus, if I add those numbers in the square root, I get 216 all over 6. Again, if you put square root of 216 in the calculator, it's not going to come out as a whole number, so go ahead and leave it as a decimal for now. So you should put in x equals 6 plus square root of 216, enter, divide by 6, hit enter again, and you get x equals 3.45. And you can make sure you round that correctly. Then x equals 6 minus square root of 216, enter, divide by 6, enter, and you would get x equals -1.45. Make sure you round that correctly, and those would be your two x-intercepts.